question that exists about Kirk Cousins is not whether he could throw a screen pass to Dalvin Cook in a big game and have Dalvin Cook run for a bunch of yards. And it's not whether he can run play action against the bad defense and then huck it down the field to Stephon Diggs. We all know that he can do that.
Right.
It's always going to be about third downs in big games, third and longs when teams slow down your running game. So I want to present this scenario to you. If you were a Vikings fan, let's say, and I gave you these two options, you can either have Kirk Cousins with the ball at his own 25-yard line and 2 minutes to go down and score a game-winning touchdown, or you can have whatever other team with the ball and Mike Zimmer's defense to keep them from scoring a touchdown, to win a playoff game, to go to the NFC Championship. Are you picking give Kirk Cousins the ball with 2 minutes left to go and go score that touchdown? Or are you picking we don't want the ball, we want to stop the other team from going down to score?
I think that it's dependent on how is Dalvin doing that day. I think if Dalvin's having an up day, I say we take the ball on offense. I think if Dalvin's having a really down day, I say, hey, listen, why don't we let our defense try and stop him? I mean, that doesn't sound too unreasonable. I mean, it sounds crazy when you're saying it, but like in the moment when you're like, hey, listen, how are we really going to do this? Do we want to have our defense go out and start the momentum, or do we want our offense to go out? And it's all predicated on Dalvin. And how is he doing? How is he doing that day? Is he, if he's been playing like he's been playing against the Cowboys, where there were guys just falling off of him and bouncing every which way off of him, yeah, I'm taking the ball and we're going to hand it off 10 straight times. You're going to try and stop it, and I don't care.
So let's say in this scenario, though, you have no timeouts left. So It's just 2 minutes, no timeouts. Kirk's going to have to throw the ball. Now, he's got Delvin. He could throw the ball to Delvin, and clearly that works
there you go.
pretty well, as we saw against Dallas. Are you still picking the defense, or with that scenario where I've basically taken the run game out of it and I've said,
right.
Do you believe in your quarterback to go win this game? Or would you rather say, like the other night where Dak Prescott's got the ball and it's the defense's job to stop him, and ultimately they helped with this, with bad play calling, but ultimately the Vikings defense bent and did not break and ended up winning the game that way. The week before against Matt Moore, he comes up with a couple of big plays. So your defense is kind of hit or miss this year. I think in the past, we all would have said, let's just give it to the other offense and we'll stuff them and that'll be it because it's Zimmer's defense. When it shows a little bit of holes and there's still a good case for picking the defense, I wonder if that tells us something about how we still feel about the quarterback position here, despite the fact that Kirk Cousins has had a really great season.
No, I if we're just saying, hey, listen, there's 2 minutes, no timeouts, you got to throw the ball. I think that Kirk's been doing a great job. I think people overlook him because Dalvin is so special, and they're like, dude, look what he's been doing. And it's a lot of it is just basically Dalvin being Dalvin, right? It's just running into people, running them over, and still not breaking. Like, he doesn't seem like he's wearing down, which is so impressive because you look around this league and some of these running backs are like not practicing all week, and then they're going out in the game and playing the whole game, and they're not practicing. But Dalvin seems to be fine week in and week out, so he's tough. And I think that is overshadowing what Kirk's doing. Now, Kirk's having a phenomenal year. Yeah, he started out a little shaky, and there are times where you feel bad for him as an offensive lineman. I'm watching. I see him getting hit, and maybe other people don't. And there's some of those hits are really tough. So I'm like, dude, this dude is actually kind of a tough player, and he sits back there and he does what he has to do. He's a great game manager. He does a great job with the ball as of lately, not turning it over, taking care of it. That's another thing. You look at these quarterbacks like a Dak Prescott, and one of his biggest knocks is he doesn't take care of the ball. And how crucial is that in certain games? You don't know in the fourth quarter, hey, listen, to win the game, is your boy going to throw an interception or is he going to fumble it? Like, I don't know. That's a lot. So I think he's doing a great job. It's just overshadowed by how important Dalvin is and how amazing he's doing.
What do you think it is that's been the difference with Kirk in terms of the turnovers? Because last year, and mostly in his past, he's had this strip sack issue. And even though he's never thrown tons and tons of interceptions, he was always good for like 10 interceptions a year, and 9 of them would be big.
Right,
9 of them would be at the worst possible time. And this year, he has not done that so much.
I think a lot of it's the guys playing around him. I think it's a lot of, obviously Stephon Diggs. He's one of the greatest receivers in the league right now. Adam Thielen, when he comes back, I mean, those guys can make great plays, and they make things that are really hard look really, really routine. And that's what's so awesome about them. Like, they do this on a regular basis. I think that obviously Kirk looks a little more calmer in the pocket at times. I think he looks like he's kind of taking full control of this offense and really absorbed it and been like, listen, this is what I like from it. Let's continue to do this. And I think it was a learning process too, because when you're talking about camp and a new OC and you're bringing in Kubiak and 2 guys that are going to mesh, I mean, let's be honest. I think everybody was kind of like, how is this going to go? Right? Like, this could go really bad. Two guys in the room just completely fighting all the time. Like, this is not going to work. But they've really made it really work. And you had to think that it was going to take maybe a week or two to kind of get it set up and how they were going to work it. But I think that so far this year, Kirk's done a great job. And I think that's overshadowed by Dalvin, but he's doing a great job with being hit a lot and having people in his face and having to do it on the run to the left, which once again, nobody knows how hard that is. Like, oh, he's just rolling out to the left. Like, dude, you have to throw across your body with the momentum, like of the perfect stride. Like, you have to be in mid stride to throw that ball or else it doesn't work. Like, how incredible. And some of the lasers that he's thrown out of that are incredible.
Did you see the stat that he has a perfect quarterback rating this year when rolling to his left?
It's incredible.
I did a piece on this and did some interviews about him just rolling to his left, and it just part of his skill set and part of Gary Kubiak and Kevin Stefanski realizing he does this well. So let's do it with him all the time. Like, oh, the guy is good at rolling to his left for some reason. We don't need an explanation for why. Just make him do it.
It's just weird, though. I mean, you never really see anybody boot out to the left, do you? I mean, it's just like one of those things like, man, doesn't that look back? Does it look backwards?
It does look weird, but he just seems to know how to do it.
Yeah, he's great at it.
Okay, so here would be the reason that I might still pick giving the ball to the defense, even though I want to give Kirk Cousins the credit he deserves for having a legit great season. I mean, this is not just okay. This is not empty numbers. Like last year, the 4,000 yards, the 30 touchdowns, you could point to a lot of games where, yeah, you were down in the fourth quarter, 2 scores though, and you racked up a couple hundred yards when you were down on, I think it was Monday Night Football or Sunday Night Football to the Saints. And then there was the game in Chicago where they're down a bunch and they get the yards, but it doesn't really mean anything. Well, this year, the yards are legit. They've directed them toward winning. The touchdowns are legit. Like everything is not just garbage yards. But his quarterback rating in third and more than 6 yards to go is 70.7. And he's only completing 54% of his passes in those situations. And that has been a thing for him pretty much for his entire career, because that's a tiny sample size right there. But even if you look at his entire career, third and more than 6, when it's got to be the straight drop back, it's got to be decisive decisions, it's got to be tight window throws and anticipatory throws and things like that. I don't think that those are necessarily something he is great at as a quarterback, like someone like Russell Wilson or Tom Brady or Ben Roethlisberger when he's playing and at his prime. And that's where I would still say that's the reason why, if you're a Vikings fan, you would have this hesitancy despite a really, really good season.
Right. Once again, stats are always so weird to me because there's so many variables that go into a stat, right? Like, oh, he's not good at 3rd and 6 plus. Who the hell is? Like 3rd and 6 plus, it takes time. The routes have to develop. Not only that, but the offensive line has to be perfect. There's so many variables that go into this. And you're like, well, he's not good on 3rd and 6 plus. Like, if that's really the only thing he's not good at, okay, I mean, that's workable. That's really good. And so far, I mean, you're looking at this and you're like, man, there's a lot to throw at him. And yes, you're going to throw a lot on the quarterback. Number one, he's the quarterback. Everything has to fall on him, and he knows that. But there are times where it's not always going to be his fault, but he's still going to have to take the credit. And I think that's where sometimes for me, it's hard to always come down on a guy because you're like, listen, it's great for everybody else, but I've been out there in the field and I know how hard it is to go 3rd and 6 plus. Like, when you're talking 3rd and 7 plus, normally that's when everybody's pressure goes up, right? Because they're like, hey, listen, we can get there by the time the receivers break their route. So that's when all the pressure's coming. That's when all the TTs are coming. That's when all the TEs are coming. That's when everything, all the garbage is coming. And you're like, man, sort through all of that. That's tough to do. So for me, that's like, man, that's one of those stats. It's like, I don't know if I could really die with that one.
Yeah, no, and I get that. But when you look at a bigger sample of guys on 3rd and long, I think it's where the difference is made between your good quarterbacks and your great quarterbacks. And the stats would back that up. Number one, over the last 5 years and I know he hasn't played this long, but quarterback rating 3rd and long plus is Patrick Mahomes at 107. But not far behind him, you have Tom Brady, Matt Ryan, Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers, all the best quarterbacks there. And you go down and then you've got your mid-pack guys, which is more in your Kirk Cousins ballpark. He's got an 84 quarterback rating, 7.3 yards per attempt. Neither one of those numbers are great. And I think it does tell you a little bit about, he's very comparable to Alex Smith in those situations and to Andy Dalton in those situations. It kind of tells you a little bit about like how vast your capabilities are as a quarterback. So you look at Russell Wilson the other night and it's 3rd and 16. Now, if that's Kirk Cousins, he's sacked. But
Yeah.
with Russell Wilson, he's not sacked. I mean, he can
Right.
break out of it and he can make a throw down the field. And that's when, if you're telling me he's got the ball, he's got 2 minutes to score at his own 25-yard line, certainly has the receivers to do it, certainly has the running back who can catch the ball on a screen and run 20 or 30 yards to do it. But eventually there's going to be one of those spots where he has to make a tight window throw when there's pressure coming, when there's deep drop coverage that isn't going to give you a whole lot of space to throw the football, and you just have to make a special play. And I think that would be the one reason, because we haven't really seen him do that in his career too many times. That would be the one reason people would still be hesitant on Cousins. Now, I tend to think that the offensive setup he has could allow the Vikings to win playoff games by 2 touchdowns anyway, because their offense
Right.
is just so explosive. But normally, though, it usually comes down to, at some point in the playoffs, which quarterback can make a play, and then you win by a score. That's why I love that game the other night between Seattle and San Francisco. It was which
Amazing.
quarterback is going to make a play, and that's going to be the game, and that was Russell Wilson.
Right. And which quarterback isn't going to lose it for him? And and remember when Russell handed the ball off to the O lineman? It was just terrible. Like, dude, what are you doing? Go
It's a
down,
strange
God.
choice.
Terrible. But we've said this on this show. Your running game's going to get you in the playoffs, and then the quarterbacks are going to separate everybody once they get in there, because those windows are going to get tighter. Those defenses are going to get a little bit tougher. They're going to stop the runs. They're going to start scheming you up better. They're going to bring pressure, and it's like, man, this is when you really have to be at your best. And for me right now, I think Kirk's doing a great job. Like I said, I think people are throwing him under the bus a lot, and I think a lot of it is really just the way he is, and people are still kind of poking fun at, I hear Florio talking about, oh, do you notice how he makes it a team win? Sure, in 3 weeks it could be a team loss. Like, people have nothing really bad to say about him, so they want to just start throwing out all these scenarios. And, oh, listen, he's gonna wait 3 weeks, he's gonna turn on the team. Dude, he's doing really well. He looks like he's taking control of this offense. More importantly, it looks like he's being a leader out there to me. And the offense is responding well, even without Thielen. And there's going to be another huge test this week, because this team, while they look, on offense, they're sorry. On defense, they're not. So it's going to be a good test.
It's made me think a lot about how we evaluate quarterback play and how difficult it is, and how it's just constantly this moving target because of scenarios and systems, which we've seen here really play out from last year's system to this year's system. And how do we decide how to rank or how to value different quarterbacks? Because this is going to be a major part of the conversation this offseason for the Vikings is, do we approach Kirk Cousins with a contract extension after this year because he's going into the final year of his deal? What is it worth? What is he worth to this team? How would another quarterback with a similar skill set fit in? How would a quarterback with a different skill set fit in? And trying to decide who's good and who's not at this is one of the hardest things, I think, in all of sports, to just figure out, is your favorite quarterback good? And this is why, I mean, the debates rage on, right? But like, let me use Jared Goff as an example. At the end of last year, Jared Goff is one of the standout best quarterbacks in the NFL for 2 straight years. Listen to his numbers through 2017 and 18. He went 24-7, 60 touchdowns, 19 picks, 100 quarterback rating, and over 8 yards per attempt, almost 275 yards a game. That's a superstar, right? And then this year, 5-4, he's got a 82 quarterback rating. It's just gone in the dumpster. He's averaging like mediocre yards per attempt. And I think it's because his offensive line fell apart. His running game has fallen apart. And all of a sudden, he's not good. So is Jared Goff good or not good? Right? To me, I have such a tough time figuring this out, aside from a handful of quarterbacks in the NFL.
Right. Well, I think it's because a handful of them are super old, so we've seen their body of work.
Yes,
I mean, think
that's
about
right.
it.
No, that's right.
Drew Brees, Tom Brady, Philip Rivers. We've seen 15 years at least of all of their work, so we're like, yeah, that dude's good. Number one, they've been doing it for a long time, like playing at a very high level. They set the bar or are at the bar every single year, right? So that makes them really good. For guys like Jared Goff and Deshaun Watson, all these young guys, it's too early to tell. I mean, going into year 5. Some of these guys are going into year 20. Like, dude, come at me when you've gone 12 years. Then we can turn around and go, okay, what have you done? Have you been to the playoffs? Have you won playoff games? Have you taken your team without a run game? I mean, there's so many things that I think you can use to evaluate a quarterback. I mean, we talk about Aaron Rodgers on here sometimes. We joke back and forth about it, but the truth is there's so many variables that go into that. Number one, he's never really had a good defense with them. Like, he's carried that team for a long time. He's never really had a run game either. So you're looking at this, you're like, man, this guy's kind of done it a lot on his own. That makes you pretty good because you've been doing it for a long time. And then turn around, you look at some of these guys like Tom Brady, who's been with one of the greatest defensive-minded people ever to be in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
Ever.
Yeah.
It's not hard to win when you have to score 14